we all want you to take those first steps, whether it's physical health, whether it's mental health, whether it's financial health, whether it's spiritual health. The first steps are the hardest, and we all want you to do it, and we're all going to support you doing it, and we all want to see you taking those first baby steps. And, like I say online all the time, like, you can do it, I can do it, we can do it. I really think just getting started starts that snowball, whatever it is, go for it.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube? Boogie298 coming at you live, listening to the power of the internet, and you're listening to my brand new show. Now, as we all know, the internet is a powerful thing, but the true power of the internet is its ability to change lives irrevocably overnight. Whether people are trying to be famous online or not, the internet can hit them like a bolt of lightning and change their lives forever. And for a long time now, I've wanted to sit down with other people who've had their lives changed by the internet the way that I did, to find out what it was they were doing that made them go viral, what they did when they became viral, and whether or not they've been able to use that power of the internet to change their lives for the better or for the worse. Whether you're somebody who's trying to become viral on the internet and become an influencer, or if you're someone who's absolutely trying to avoid the internet's attention, this should have some information in there for you, but I hope it's entertaining as well. So sit back, relax, and enjoy, and welcome to the power of the internet. So today I had the opportunity to sit down and interview a brand new fitness influencer by the name of Danna. And to hear him describe himself, he's just a Southern accountant who's looking to change his life for the better. But the people that follow him, like me, would call him an inspiration. Dave began his weight loss journey about a year ago and started off at over 400 pounds and decided to put his journey online to help hold himself accountable so that people could watch him lose the weight. Now, during this weight loss journey, he has gained tens of thousands of followers, and starting in last December, he started getting national attention. And this has culminated that just before the interview, he got the attention of the one and only bodybuilder, Arnold Schwarzenegger, so you know he's doing something right. Dave is not only changing his own life by making himself feel and look better and giving himself a better quality of life, but he's inspiring tens of thousands of other people doing it via the power of the internet. So sit back, relax, and listen as I get the opportunity to speak with a brand new influencer who's absolutely killing the game and saving lives in the process of doing it, the one and only Danna. But what's up, Dave? How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing really well. I was just looking at your Twitter feed, and you have hit a brand new level of virality over the last week. Who retweeted you recently?
It's been a crazy week. This week has been Arnold Schwarzenegger and the Internet Hall of Fame, which is a large Twitter account, as well as a large gym meme account on Instagram. And I find people on Facebook all the time. So, and that's just in the last week or two. It has been quite an intense week in terms of virality, as you said.
And so, Dave, if you were to define what you're doing online right now, would you consider yourself an influencer at this point, do you think?
I'm not sure when I cross that line. It's certainly not something I'm trying to be honest. I'm mostly just trying to lose weight and have a good time, sort of enjoy the journey. But I do think at some point in time, I have to consider myself to have crossed that line. I'm not sure where it is, though.
And I'll be honest with you. I think that's when people are at their most successful, because I think you're a very genuine person. But for the people who are tuning in, don't really know who you are yet, I would say that you're a fitness influencer, but I'd like to hear how you define yourself.
Sure. Mostly at this point in time, I know I'm just a fat Jewish accountant down here in the deep South in the United States. And I got to a point in my life last year when I was worried that my life wouldn't last much longer. And I had just turned 30 years old. I was getting an error message on my scale at home because it only went up to 400 pounds. And, it was sort of my come to Jesus moment. I had to make some radical changes and at least get a number on the scale to start with. And then I started posting, just for accountability. I wanted to do it under my own name. I wanted to do it consistently because, as with every big guy, I tried and failed every diet beforehand. What I never done is done it in public before because I was too embarrassed to do it. I was too ashamed to do it. I knew I was going to fail. So why bother, right? It was tough. It was really hard. It was hard enough on my mental health being that big. It was even harder failing repeatedly, So I thought, you know what? I don't think I have many more first chances left at this size and still gaining. So I'm going to do it in public. I'm going to do it under my own name, and maybe one person will follow me. Maybe 1,000 people will follow me. But the point was accountability and consistency for me. And here we are, nearly 50,000 people later, and 9 months later, down about 85, 86 pounds.
That's incredible, man. Yeah. And so I love I love to see you losing weight, but I don't think necessarily just because you're losing weight, that's why you've caught so many people's attention. So what do you think the magic is? What is it that you think has made you, because I have a theory on it. I'll offer my theory as well, but I'm curious from your perspective, what is it that you think is getting the attention of so many people?
Yeah, I don't think, to be honest, I don't think it's primarily the weight loss either, because I'm going pretty slow and steady, and the internet likes, constant dopamine hits and sort of that addictive nature of social media. And me dropping 1 to 2 pounds a week is not the most exciting thing anyone's done. It's what I want to do. I think it's healthy and sustainable, but I think there's a real craving, especially in the last few years, for authenticity and for being genuine and for putting yourself outside of your comfort zone. And I can tell you, I'm definitely doing that, and I'm doing it every day. And I think rather than try to be a brand or a character, I'm just myself every day. And sometimes I post food pictures, and sometimes I forget to post them, and sometimes I post selfies here and selfies there. And I have different interests, and I just talk about them. And I'm not political, and I'm trying not to engage in any culture war issues. I'm definitely not engaging in any of that. And I'm just trying to be an authentic guy, trying to lose weight, because that's really what I am on a daily basis. And to be honest, I guess it struck a chord. The weight loss helps, of course, but I think it's more than that. I think you're right.
So one of the things that made you come across my timeline, if I'm getting the quote wrong here, but you were talking about not wanting to embrace obesity, not wanting to be someone who accepts fatness, but you're someone who wanted to defeat it.
Correct.
And I love that, because I think that is, like you said, not really engaging in the culture war, because there's this huge culture war about fat acceptance, and some people are fat and you got to love fat people and accept fat people, right? I think your angle of saying that it's just not for you. So really, what made you take that specific angle? Like, so many people want to throw themselves into this culture war because they feel like that's the fast path to internet fame. But you're just subverting it all together, and I love that about you. But why that path?
I think why it's such an appealing path to me is because I wasn't looking to be viral, and I wasn't looking to be, I guess, an influencer, if that's what I am. And for the first, X number of months since I did start this back in June of 2022, there wasn't anyone following me, and I wasn't, getting any virality. I'm really just doing it so that I can be a healthy, good role model for my future children, so that I can be around to see them grow up, right? So that my parents don't have to bury their son, right? No parent should have to go through that, especially something self-inflicted like obesity. And I wasn't a super obese child or anything. So it was mostly something I did to myself in adulthood, through a variety of different reasons. But because that is my goal, like really my goal is to get under 200 pounds, like genuinely. And the follower count is amazing and humbling. And like, it's just, I honestly can't believe every morning that people are like looking at my Planet Fitness selfie, but that's really not what my goal is. My goal is, is every Way and Wednesday to see a 1 or 2 or 3 pound weight loss.
But I also think that is a big part of one of the reasons that I follow you. And I hope that's a lot of the reasons that other people follow you as well, is because, like you said, you did not set out to do anything other than hold yourself accountable, do this in a public eye. And I would like to think you were here to inspire people as well, because I can tell you, when I see your posts on my timeline, and I see you very frequently in the timelines, responding to other people that I talk to, you're pretty active on the platform, and I'm glad you are. It reminds me, I haven't gone and punched my bag in the last couple of hours. I haven't got up on my feet the last couple of hours. You're getting me back up and moving again. Like, you are doing that. You're having a positive impact on my life. So, I mean, was it a goal to inspire people? Was it more about yourself? I'm really curious, and how do you feel about inspiring other people?
Initially, it was not, because again, I was holding myself accountable for something I had almost written off that I wasn't going to be successful at. Because if I was going to be successful at weight loss or inspiring people or being healthy, I wouldn't have gotten to where I couldn't get a weight on my scale. So, but once I had lost about 50 pounds and people started paying attention, I realized that not only accountability, but I could be a positive role model right now. I might not have to wait until I'm under 200 pounds. I can take people on the journey with me, and I can, I'm not healthy right now, right? For a number of different reasons, but I can take people as a role model and try to inspire them, and they inspire me as I inspire them. So it's this feedback loop that really boosts your mental health, boosts your confidence, and I think it's a win-win for everyone, while I'm also accomplishing that initial goal of getting healthy and weight loss. So it has been sort of a side benefit that I have engaged with because it reinforces everything I'm trying to do, and it inspires me by seeing other people's stories. And again, it snowballs into what it's become and what it's becoming. So I guess the short answer is no initially, and yes now very much.
Would you say it's created like any amount of like pressure now that so many people are following you, so many people are paying attention to you?
Yes.
Like that at the beginning, how has it changed from the very beginning to where you are now, do you think? How do you feel about it differently?
I feel both more confident and more pressure to perform at the same time, which is sort of a catch-22. Originally, I was just really pumped that I was down 20 pounds, 30 pounds, 40 pounds, 50 pounds. And now today was my weigh-in Wednesday, and I was down 1.7, 1.8 in the last week. And I kind of felt bummed out about that because that's not really quite where I'd want to be. And then I posted it online. That was in the last week, and everyone was very supportive, reinforcing how much that would be if I did it every week for a year. And so again, I both felt pressure and stress and a little bit of disappointment in myself over the last week. And then the community stood up and backed me up and re-motivated me and re-inspired me. And so I do feel pressure to perform that I didn't feel at the beginning. Now that people are watching me, especially because like Arnold Schwarzenegger wants to like know when I get under 300 pounds. And so,
you do not want to disappoint the Terminator. That's not a thing you want to do. Yeah,
that's exactly right. And I'm not going to. But so there is more pressure, but there's also more confidence because at this point, I know that for some reason on such a toxic platform like Twitter, I found a very positive and inspiring and motivating corner of it. Not just me to them, but them to me. When I have a week when I lose 1.7, 1.8, a 300-pound guy should, hopefully my goal is to do a little better than that. So I came up a little bit short and I posted it online. I'm holding myself accountable. My gym selfie, I got on the scale, I posted the video, and everything was very positive, very reinforcing, very motivating to me. So yes, more pressure and more confidence at the same time. My mental health is both much better and I feel more pressure to perform at the same time.
Now, one of my favorite things on your feed is seeing your non-scale victories because the scale is very, very important, right? And I'm so glad that that's a way that we have to measure our weight loss and things. And we can also measure our weight loss in inches and the sizes and our muscle growth and our fat percentages, and all of those numbers are great. But when I see you doing brand new stuff, like when you were doing bench presses this week, which was what caught Arnie's.
Yes, exactly.
Could you have imagined at 400 pounds, you going into a gym and bench pressing at all?
No. For starters, I couldn't have imagined myself going into a gym, period, let alone using the strength equipment that's for like buff dudes and bodybuilders and not for like 420-pound-year-old accountants who are, probably depressed, right? Like definitely not. I would have spent 30 miserable minutes on the treadmill and then I would have left and I burnt like 45 calories and felt terrible, right? And gotten takeout on the way home. So to do it, it has become, I say this sometimes and I'm not sure people really understand it, but the mental health benefits over the last 9 months have exceeded the weight loss and physical health benefits. And that's hard to say because I have dropped 90 pounds and my blood pressure's come down, my glucose has come down, my A1C's come down, all these good scale measurements or blood measurements, but the non-scale victories are what's so much more impressive to me personally and impressive to my girlfriend and my friends and family, just my self-confidence, my self-worth, my I'm never formally diagnosed with depression, but I feel like I probably had some sort of binge eating disorder or food addiction disorder. Not that I don't have it anymore, but such improvement over 9 months. And I think that has been driven largely from going to the gym every 5 days a week, before 5 a.m. And it's been driven by that, even though the number of calories I burn per workout is not that impressive. It's a candy bar, it's 2 candy bars. I can easily offset whatever I burn in the gym. But what I can't do is offset the mental health benefits and the confidence and that feeling of positivity and optimism I get by like 6 or 7 in the morning before anyone's awake. I got up, I did this thing, I got my blood pumping, I got a sweat up, I tried a new machine in the gym, a leg extension, don't know what that is, I don't know, but like I did it, and then going home, that mental health boost, I think it can't be underestimated, and it often is because so many people don't go to the gym, or so many people are very hyper focused on their scale victories, and those are important. But I don't think you should get addicted to the scale. I don't get on the scale every day. I think we get stuck in analysis paralysis if we get on the scale every day. Your weight fluctuates from all sorts of reasons, and you end up just freaking out over a point 0.2 gain, a point, point 0.2 loss, whatever. I'm 300 pounds, right? The decimal isn't important, right? So, but those non-scale victories, those mental health victories, they're so important, and men just don't talk about it. And I think that might be another reason that people, follow me, because I'm not an expert, and I'm not trying to be, but I am a man who does talk about his mental health.
So I do love that you're talking about the mental health aspect, and I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
I do want to talk about the health at any size movement, but before I get into that, I do want to ask you, are you working closely with a trainer at this point? Are you working with your doctor at this point? Like, who do you have professionals in your life that are helping you with this? If you're comfortable talking about it, are you doing therapy? Like, do you have professionals in your life that are backing you up here?
So I am working with a doctor. When I moved here in May of last year, and I started this journey in June, and I went to my doctor for the first time in 10 to 15 years, a long time. This was a new doctor in September, and then I went again in January, and I'll go again in June. So I'm seeing him 2 to 3 times a year, and we're doing blood work every time, obviously getting on the scale every time, discussing diet and exercise every time. And I have been taking advantage of the free group sessions they have at the gym. But I will say, and I know this some of the gym bros will get me for this, but the workouts I do like mild to moderate workouts. So I'm trying not to push myself too hard. I'm not trying to do like those Biggest Loser crazy things. I don't want to injure myself. I'm still a big guy. I don't think my mental health could take an injury that kicked me out of the gym for a month. And really at this point in time, I'm picking up and putting down so much weight every time I stand up and sit down. I just got on that bench press like a couple weeks ago, and I was like 7 or 8 months into my time at the gym. So I'm taking it very slowly, very mildly, very moderately. I've got nothing but time, as long as I get to my health goals, right, to learn it slowly. So medical professionals, in terms of my doctor, seeing them 2 or 3 times a year, getting blood work done, discussing diet and exercise, yes. The gym, in terms of seeing a trainer, I don't have a single one-on-one trainer. I have met several times in a group session that they have little classes to learn how to do some of this stuff, and then I'm taking it very slowly. And then I have tried therapy in the past. I was not super impressed with it. It is something that I am considering doing again. But I'm nothing against it. I have tried it in the past.
I'll be entirely brutally honest with you. Therapy is like dating, man. I like anybody who ever wants to get into therapy, you have to find the right match. And it's so like you go through all the trouble of finding a therapist, and then you go through like sitting down with them for the first time and trying to get to know them. And then it's not a good fit. So now you got to go on a first date again, as though I actually call them first dates at this point. And it's so hard to find a therapist that you match with. And then on top of that, they've got to be educated in the field that you're in. And on top of that, doing things that you'll be receptive to, because some people are receptive to talk therapy. Some people want cognitive behavioral therapy. So there's no problem. And in my opinion, ever taking a break from therapy, finding out it didn't work for you, moving on and trying to do those other things. And I think everybody needs to be in therapy. I think even therapists need to be in therapy. Most of them are, because their job is so difficult, right?
Yeah.
So I always recommend to anybody who's doing what you're doing, what we're doing, anybody doing social media, look into therapy. But I also think it's okay that you're doing it without it. And I also love your perspective of, and this is one of the reasons I'm following you so closely, is that you are taking your time, because you do have a professional life outside of what you're doing.
Yeah.
You can't sprain your back and end up missing your work. You've got a job to do, got a life to live. And every therapist I've ever had, every doctor I've ever had, and I presume your doctor might agree, it's not the big changes we make, like a crash diet or doing a keto diet or whatever it is we choose to do. It's the small lifestyle choices that we make. And I see you making those new lifestyle choices every day, first getting into the gym and then the food changes you're making and holding yourself accountable. And I think that's the right path. And I love seeing a fitness influencer that's on that path, because I think genuinely, and I don't know if you agree with this, it'll tie into some of the things I do want to talk to you about today, is I think The Biggest Loser and the television shows like that did such a disservice for people, because people on that show, they lost weight overnight, it seemed like, because they had 12, 14-hour days in a rehab facility where all they were doing was working out from the moment they woke up to the moment they go to bed, and they're getting paid to do it. Not everybody can do that.
Yeah.
Some people out there who are listening to this are working 2 to 3 jobs a day. They need to learn from you and see what you're doing and the way that you're doing it, not risking injury, not risking collapse, not risking relapse. And so I'm really proud of you for putting that message out there. So you have talked a little bit about the health at any size movement. And I'm curious if you have any opinions today you wanted to share on that.
I agree with it, I think, more than people think I do. I don't have any problem with, I not even don't have any problem. I do fully support having a broader spectrum of what we consider culturally to be beautiful, of what we consider to be different body types that are accepted and attractive, having a more inclusive, including size and shape of different types of people, especially with men. It's very seemingly focused on women. And I think that, in my opinion, that seems to be what it initially started as, was just, there was a hyper focus in the media on it's like sort of like the 90s and like the Sports Illustrated days, where it was like one body type you would see over and over again, one female body type specifically over and over again. And so there was originally a movement to make that more inclusive, make that more accepting, make it more understanding that people come in different shapes and sizes. And unfortunately, in my opinion, as with so many things in our culture, it has gone to an extreme place whereby, for me personally, at over 400 pounds and not being able to get up the stairs easily, not being able to get a weight on my scale, needing a seatbelt extension on the plane, having trouble tying my shoes, being worried that seats were going to collapse under me. There just wasn't a whole lot of positivity going on. And so I don't try to tell anyone how they should live or whether they should think it, health at every size. But for me, I can just tell you that body positivity and health at every size at some point became something that I had to get off the train, as it were. And that was around the time when I was fearing for my life every day because I had gotten so large, and it wasn't particularly positive for me. It didn't feel particularly healthy.
Isn't that the most embarrassing thing, is when you're flying and you have to ask for that seatbelt extender? It is so, and they don't make it easy, right? Like, you have to flag down the woman as you're getting on the plane, and then she's like, "Oh, I'll be right back with it," and then she marches it back to you, and everybody knows what's going on. And on top of that, I tend to buy 2 seats because of how big I am at 400 pounds even now. But at 600 pounds, it wasn't an option. I had to do it, right? And so I just flying is such a nightmare at this size. Have you been big your whole life, do you think?
No.
So when did you really start getting big?
I graduated college probably around 225, which for my height meant that I should lose a little bit of weight, but nothing like being 420 or where I probably started. So it was after college. It was being a workaholic. It was the stress and pressure of, I went right into Big Four public accounting, combine the high intensity job, the stress, living in a big, very expensive city, never seeing the sunlight, never having time to exercise or thinking I never had time to exercise, and then combine it with a salary that for the first time in my life, I could buy as much fast food as I wanted. Not expensive, nice food, but the drive-through, right? Especially back in 2015, 2016, before it was as expensive, there were still dollar menus around and whatnot. I mean, I could pack down a lot of calories on a starting accountant salary if it was handed through me a car window. And so it wasn't that hard to pack on 100 pounds in 3 or 4 years, and then 100 pounds after that, or, roughly what I did. And I think a lot of it was driven by mental health, was driven by stress, was driven by work, and was driven just by, I went to college and I grew up. I had a wonderful childhood. I wasn't particularly overweight or obese, but I don't think any of that does a particularly good job for preparing you on how to adult in the 21st century, with the constant pressure of the internet, the constant connectedness, the social media, the fact that my work email could email me whenever, my parents didn't go to Big Four public accounting in Washington, D.C., right? That my experience was just very different than theirs. And so, and college, largely was, adult daycare for 4 years. I had a blast, don't get me wrong. I learned a ton too, but it didn't really explain how I was supposed to pay rent and pay off my student loans and get a car and deal with, my sleep schedule with all this work. And so for me, some people turn to alcohol or drugs, or I don't know, maybe video games. I don't know what they turn to. All sorts of bad habits, right?
I think I've turned to all but one of those.
Well, I turned to food, and that was very apparent by my weight nearly doubling in 8 or 9 years. So the answer is no. I was moderately overweight, I guess you could say. I needed to lose 20 or 30 pounds by the time I graduated college, maybe 40 pounds, but certainly not 250, right?
Out of curiosity, gaining that much weight that quickly. I mean, I can't imagine having to buy all new clothes but I mean, you could really feel that weight coming on every day. Like I've been big my whole life, so when I lose weight, I can tell the difference. But when I was putting weight on, it really didn't make that big of a difference. But I imagine putting on weight that quickly. Did it make a big difference physically, mentally, but also professionally? I'm curious, do people treat you different at that size?
So mentally, it made a huge difference. Physically, I don't think it made as much of a difference as it would have, because at that point I had a very sedentary lifestyle because I was just doing like accounting for 60 hours a week in front of a laptop. And professionally, I kind of, this might be odd to say, but I kind of feel like I got lucky because when I really breached like 350 and 400, that was COVID and I was remote. So I barely saw anyone. So that was a blessing and a curse. I'm not sure I would have gotten as big if I was still going into the office, but at the same time, I don't think I caught some of the judgment I may have if I was, because 300 is big. Over 400 is, really big, but I wasn't in an office for the last 3 years, or I was in an office a lot less, or they only saw my head, even less than you're seeing right now. And so it didn't have an impact on me professionally, but I do think it would have if I were going into the office 5 days a week while I was that big.
And I mean, yeah, talking about being lucky, I mean, we all put on COVID weight. I'd gotten down to 330, which is the lowest I had been since I was 16. And then I got back up to 390 during COVID, and I've struggled to get that weight back off. Fortunately, I haven't gone back over 400, but I think we all put on weight. So if somebody was like rude to you for putting on weight during COVID when the world was like basically ending, so it having lost the weight now, do you think people treat you any different now that you lost 86 pounds? Is it you've lost
as of today? Yeah,
86 pounds. It's incredible. Yeah. So I mean, do you see people treating you any different at all? Because I know when I lost weight, that was a big difference. Also, when I got my teeth fixed, it was a big difference. Like people started making eye contact with me once I got my teeth fixed, where normally they would avoid looking directly at me. So I'm curious if you've noticed any changes there.
Yeah, I definitely think I'm starting to see people treat me nicer, to be honest, just to put it sort of bluntly. And I feel like I'm noticed more by people casually when I'm walking by. And I feel like that will continue as I continue to lose weight. 86 pounds is great, but it's less than half of my goal. And so I feel like when I was over 400 pounds and it was getting difficult just to do things out of the house, I was still functioning and going out of the house, but everything was like basically on the borderline of not working, not fitting, collapsing, right? And so at that point in time, I really felt like people were just like overlooking you. He's not a person, like he's probably not going to be around much longer, right? Like he's struggling to like get into the Walmart, right? So he's probably going to have to go get one of those, the riders, right? Which, I was on borderline needing that.
I could definitely say when I was growing up, I was like the only fat guy. I was definitely the only fat kid in a county. But like there was hardly any fat people on television. There's certainly no fat people in the local grocery store. You never saw them. I think if there were people that size back then, they remained hidden. Now we're a lot more common. And I have a theory. I'm curious what you think about this theory, but I think once you're a certain size, you become extremely visible, right? Like when you're coming in the double-sized wheelchair, people are going to like stare at you, take photos. But there's this gray area, and I feel like I'm in that gray area now where I'm invisible for the most part, right? Like people don't want to look at you, but you're not big enough or weird enough or unusual enough to like for people to pay attention to you, but also you're not like small enough to where they're going to treat you with love and respect like they would anybody else. And they're probably not going to be attracted to you. And so let's imagine at the rate you're losing weight, 2 pounds a week, you got another 80 pounds to go. You'll be the place you want to be probably in a year.
Yeah.
So you think you'll continue to do what you're doing online? Do you think you'll continue to share your story with people? Do you hope to be a fitness influencer? Is this like a one and done thing for you? What's your hopes for the future?
Originally I said I'm going to stop this when I hit my goal weight, because originally that was the goal. And now that has taken on somewhat of being more motivational, being more inspiring, and also all the positive feedback I'm getting from it. I know people tell me all the time I'm motivating them and I'm inspiring them, and I still find that like crazy, to be honest, and very humbling. But the truth is they're motivating and inspiring me at this point, well beyond going to the gym and well beyond weight loss, professionally, academically, just like getting up and like getting stuff done that I need to do as an adult. It's very positive and motivating and optimistic to have this community that's being built online. So I feel like my answer has morphed into, as long as people are there, I'll be there.
I think that's the blessing and the curse of social media, really. I think, when the social media is at your back, they can absolutely carry you along, that wind, that pressure, that love. And when social media is like turned against you a little bit, that can be definitely devastating, especially if you're susceptible to this type of thing. And it sounds like you are susceptible to the positivity. I'm wondering, have you seen much negativity in your timelines? And if so, how do you deal with it?
There has definitely been some negativity. It's luckily been a tiny fraction, and it's usually from people who don't follow me, I don't think, but they might just like see a tweet where I'm like, I'm not going to be fat forever, and they're like, I think you are, bro, like, or something like that, which is sort of like a one-off comment. My general take on not just negativity, but also like politics and the culture war, and like 90% of what I see on Twitter is that it's to try not to engage. It's to not engage. I'm pretty good at not engaging. However, it absolutely impacts me. It's like, it definitely impacts my mental health. You definitely think about that one negative comment exponentially more than like the 1,000 positive comments. It stays with me all day. And to be honest, I don't have a phenomenal coping mechanism beyond trying not to focus on the 1% that's negative and not engaging with it. And I mean, on Twitter, I'm a big fan of the mute and block button. I wasn't initially, but there's a segment of, anonymous emojis or whatever they are that are going to be trolls. And you have to harden yourself to that. And it is not easy for me to say that because I don't feel like it's a real solution. I just don't have a particularly better one.
Right. I mean, honestly, I don't think anybody has the solution. I haven't known hundreds of influencers, you being one of the first ones I've interviewed, but having spoken to hundreds of those at this point, the whole answer is entirely, you just basically have to tune those people out and focus on the people that are in your real life that support you and care about you. Take criticism, sure, but take criticism from the people in your life that love you and care about you and support you, right? And not just some anime emoji on Twitter, like somebody with an anime profile icon. That guy doesn't really know you. They have a version of you in their head. They're criticizing a different version of you, not the real you. And so that's something I always try to consider. And I think especially choosing not to participate, because I have a theory about Twitter these days, and I try not to get political on Twitter anymore, even though I really tried, but I realized nobody's solving any problems on the internet. We're not talking this stuff through. We're not changing any minds, and we certainly aren't fixing any of the problems. It's a bit of just kind of virtue signaling is a word that some people have used. I don't necessarily think of it as that, but I feel like it's kind of like a dumping ground where everybody talks and nobody really listens. And so I think it's probably a great idea to stay away from that stuff, not just for a career or not just for social media, gaining following or anything like that, but I think just for your mental health. And I'm glad to know that mentally you're staying away from that, because losing weight online, I think, is probably one of the most dangerous things somebody can do, especially if you're dealing with mental illness, depression, food addiction, binge eating disorders, any of that stuff. Definitely, those people can set you back quite a bit.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, I think that's especially true for men, because we don't talk about our mental health and we don't talk about the struggles we're having. And so there's no spaces that exist, I feel like, at least, that there are in some cases with women who are already talking about that. I think it's harder for a woman to be online than a man, but talking about mental health online as a man, that's where I've gotten the most negativity, because they'll just tell you to like man up, like, lift heavier, just some like off the cuff stuff. I don't even know if they necessarily mean it negatively, but like manning up or like lifting heavier isn't like going to help my like binge eating or like that I'm having a bad mental health day, right? You know what I mean? It's not helpful, and I'm going to think about that comment now for 6 hours, and I have to be at work or I have to be doing schoolwork. But I do think you touched on a key point that they say on Twitter all the time that Twitter is not real life, and I do think that is key. And something I probably haven't mentioned is that my in real life support network is also very important. The online stuff is great. I'm definitely going to keep doing it, but I see a lot of people who don't have that for whatever reason, or are trying to purely do it online. And I think that it's in the background so people don't realize it, because it's hard for me to like post like exactly what that is, but it's very important and it very much exists. And it's the bedrock for when I get too many negative comments, I disengage, I get off Twitter for a few hours, and I go, engage with my in real life support network. And, after, people move on after like 10 minutes on Twitter. So you get back on in a few hours and they're off trolling someone else, right?
I find that they only stick around when you give them the attention that they were looking for, and they're like, "Oh, I found a source of that engagement. Now I'm going to triple down on this guy." But you have some real end game goals here outside of social media, right? You're doing this not just to save your life, but I think you said on Twitter that you're looking to start a family as well.
Yeah,
Is that something
agreed.
you're comfortable talking about with?
Yeah, sure. So I'm getting serious, more serious with my girlfriend, and I see that progressing into being beyond a girlfriend. And then I definitely want children. I'd like to have three or more. Maybe that's a little too many, but I'd like to have at least three, and I'd like to be a healthy and positive role model for them. And so it's very I want to be healthy for me, because it felt, again, there was nothing positive in my mind about being over 400 pounds. But as a father, as a husband, hopefully as a member of a community I can put roots down in, I'd like to not build an empire or anything, but build something positive and constructive that I can show my children, just like my parents showed me. And I feel like I couldn't start that at over 400 pounds, to be honest. I just I needed to be able to put a seatbelt on first, right?
Right. I've always agreed that, like, if I wasn't able to get out into a yard and play ball with my kids, then why am I having kids, right? If I can't get down on the floor and play with my children, then I probably should not necessarily be wanting to have children. That's my personal preference. I'm not here to tell anybody else what they should do. I don't think you are either, right? And a lot of the times we don't plan for children, right? Children just show up sometimes, right? So not everybody out there's got that choice. And I'm not saying just because you're not mentally well or financially fit, I'm not saying anybody shouldn't have kids. I'm just saying, for me, starting a family moving forward, though, you think you'll continue to let the internet be a part of your life moving forward, even when you start that family? Or do you think you might find yourself tuning out one day? Do you think the internet will be a part-time thing for you? Could it be a full-time thing for you? What are you hoping to do with it?
I think it will definitely be at least a part-time thing. I don't think I could disengage, to be honest. At the end of the day, I'm a Twitter addict, like a lot of people on Twitter. I happen to try to use it as positively as possible, but it's still hard for me to get off at the end of the night, even with a 4 a.m. wake up the next morning. So I do think it will be at least a part-time thing for me. My fear with trying to move more full-time is that I only blew up in the last few months. I really don't know what I'm doing. I'm not any type of expert. And with children, hopefully in my future, in the not too distant future, I didn't grow up with social media. I grew up like just a few years before that. Like maybe I had a Facebook in high school, but like maybe I didn't have a smartphone. So a lot less so. I'm really scared of how to raise children appropriately on social media, because it's so addicting, and it's such a negative and positive for them. So that doing it as a husband and a father with children, I think would be very scary for me. But I do definitely see it being a part of the rest of my life. The community has been so positive, so motivating. I definitely don't expect to stop. And the reason I'm giving you sort of a roundabout answer is really because I blew up in December, and it's the first week of April, and I'm not 100% sure. I'd like to keep going. I'd like to keep doing it. For so far, it's been amazingly positive, and it's been amazingly motivating to me. But and I would like to keep doing it as long as there's an audience and keep building. But I guess the answer is I'm not 100% sure.
I love that. And again, I think some of my advice has been to people throughout the years, and if I were to offer any advice to you, is that what really brings you to the table is your authenticity and you being who you are. And I think it's when we try to be who other people want us to be, or to create the type of content other people want us to create, or do the things that other people want us to do, that's when I lose that authenticity.
Yeah.
But the fact that you're just figuring this out as you go, and you don't have a social media manager in your pocket, there's just nobody trying to teach you how to do this.
Yeah.
You're just being the best you that you can be online every day. And I'm just going to be honest with you, Dave, having talked to you today and followed you for a while, I think the best you is a very good you.
I appreciate
think
that.
You are a very kind person. I've also watched some of your YouTube videos, and I've enjoyed what I'm seeing there as well.
Thank
I mean, he's not just on Twitter, folks. You got to watch some of these YouTube videos as well.
I appreciate that.
I think there needs to be more people like you on social media. And if I had to guess, Dave, I would say that moving forward, I think as long as that authenticity is still there, I think you're going to do so incredibly well on the internet. You're young enough to where you could probably set social media down and not really be too wrecked by it. Now, my generation, some of us found it and decided this was all we were ever going to do ever again. Some of us found it and decided we hated it and walked away. But I think the generation that's coming up right now, the potential kids in your future, they're going to live in a world where social media is just constant.
Yeah.
That's all there is, right? That's how they make their plans on the weekend. That's how they live their lives. That's how they communicate is through text.
It's going to be so ubiquitous and so integrated to everything. It's both exciting and very concerning for me, just because it's so different from how I grew up, and I see it as such a double-edged sword. Before these last few months, like my personal Facebook page, or I didn't have a personal Instagram, I didn't have a personal TikTok, I didn't have a personal Twitter. My Facebook page I posted a couple times a year, like to keep my parents and grandparents updated. I wasn't a really big fan of social media, and then I decided to do this for accountability purposes, and now I have a following. But sometimes people ask me like the plan, the strategy, and like you mentioned, like there isn't one. I don't know. I just started doing it. I don't have a person, but there's no one managing. It's just me. And I'm not really any type of social media or YouTube or anything expert. I'm just figuring it out as I go. And it's been wonderfully positive. But like you said, the kids these days, or kids in a few years, it's just going to be integrated into, I can't even imagine what it'll be integrated in, but it's going to be constant and 24/7. And it's either going to be like a wonderful, beautiful thing or not so much, or maybe both, depending on how you use it. But, my hope is, honestly, that by the time I have kids and they're old enough to understand that I'm at a place with my social media that I have answered some of those questions, and that therefore I can be more established and more understanding of like algorithms and all this stuff that drives all of this, and hopefully that will allow me to be a little bit more of a role model to them with a history of like positive social media usage.
Hell yeah. So if there was somebody listening right now, okay, because when you started this journey, how many followers did you have on Twitter, for example?
Last year, a few thousand, maybe tops. And then I didn't even have an Instagram or a Facebook or a YouTube.
Right. So if there's somebody at home right now and they're struggling with their weight loss and they decide they want to go the route that you've gone, they want to put it out publicly and they want to hold themselves accountable for their handful of followers. Maybe they have 1,000, maybe they have 50, maybe it doesn't matter. If you have some advice for them on not just the social media aspect or the weight loss aspect or whatever it is that you've done right, if you had advice for somebody who's wanting to follow in your footsteps today, what would that advice be?
What I didn't realize soon enough, and this applies to social media, it applies to your in real life support network, it applies to the gym bros, is that it applies to your doctor, your therapist. Everyone wants you to succeed, except for a few trolls, and everyone wants you to be there. So for a long time, I hid my binge eating. I hid my obesity as much as I could, especially after COVID. A lot of my in real life friends and family haven't seen me this big because I was hiding, essentially. I live far away. I work remotely. There was a pandemic. No one was flying. And what I realized after probably 6 months and talking to a few of the guys at the gym and starting to get people positively interacting with me on social media, but also being more open with my parents, being more open with my doctor. I mean, I mentioned I went to the doctor for the first time last semester in like 15 years. Well, that was because I didn't want to go and I was fat, right? Because I knew he was going to say bad things, right? So I think one of the things, this isn't, particularly concrete advice, sorry y'all, but I really think everyone wants you to succeed and everyone wants you to be there, whether it's in the gym or at the doctor's office or in your therapist's office or talking with your in real life support network. And that was a huge boost to my mental health. It was a huge weight off my shoulders to be able to more openly talk about it. And originally, early on, I wasn't talking to anyone on Instagram or Twitter or TikTok, or I just had this tiny audience or no audience. But then I realized that this tiny audience in real life or online, they want you to succeed. And that was a real turning point for me. It may not sound like it, but realizing that like those guys in the gym who've been lifting for decades and are like bigger than I'm ever going to be in terms of muscle, right? And they're maxing out, I don't even know what they're doing. And I don't know what they're tracking. I don't know what they're drinking. And but they want me to be there and they'll help me and they'll show me how to do certain things. And that's the exact same thing for your doctor. And that's the exact same thing for most of your support network. And it's the exact same thing on social media. When I have a question about social media, I ask social media because because that's who's going to know. And so if you were starting out, I would just recognize that we all want you to be there, whether it's on Instagram or whether it's in the gym or whether it's at your therapist or whether it's at your doctor's or whether it's like walking into like a health food store for the first time. And it's ask questions. People are more friendly and more open than you probably think they are. It was a huge mental barrier to me because I was so big to try to go up to someone and ask for like exercise advice or diet advice or to ask my doctor, because obviously I should like diet, right? Because I'm fat, right? But that's not helpful. It wasn't doing anything for me, right? Like the key to me is recognizing how many people want you to be there and you belong there and want you to succeed, not just online, but in real life too. I think in real life is very important.
Because I joined my first gym in years last summer. And I've been mostly working out at home over the last few months, but I want to get back in there because the moment I step foot through that door, the people who are obviously paid to be nice to you at the gym were obviously nice to me, right? But then once I was sharing the pool with other people, when I was sharing the sauna with other people, when I was trying out the different equipment, it is actually amazing, as big as I was, how incredibly kind people were to me. And I think you're doing like Anytime Fitness, which is like, it's supposed to be a lot more friendly of an environment, but I went to a more private gym because it had a pool. And so some of the people there are some big, strong dudes and athletes that are playing, ball up at the university, and they're working out at this club because it's right next to the university. And every single one of these people were incredibly kind to me. No one had a disparaging thing to say. So I think you're 100% right. I think they really want you to be there. They want you to be successful. I know when I walk into my local co-op, they love to see me eating healthy. They love to see me eating the better foods. And I know my audience has always been there for that. Even when I failed, the majority of my audience has been there to help pick me back up and get me back on track. And when I've been successful, that's when my audience truly flourishes. And I'm so grateful that they are the same way for you. You mentioned one thing I think is so funny, though, not wanting to be honest with your doctor. And early on, I wouldn't talk to my doctor about a lot of my health issues that were related to my obesity because I had so many doctors just say to me, "Oh, you'll lose weight. Yeah, my knees hurt. Yeah, lose weight. I'm having trouble sleeping at night. Yeah, lose weight. My back hurts. Lose weight." And until I found the doctors I've been with now for almost a decade, they were like, "Well, your back hurts. Let's help you with some medication that'll get you back up on your feet so you can work on losing weight.
Yeah.
And let's give you a shot of cortisone in your knee that'll allow you to get back up on and moving. And so that let me treat the symptoms because you need to lose weight. I don't have to tell you that. You know how to lose weight. If you want, we'll introduce you to a nutritionist. She'll set you down and tell you everything you need to know. But you already know less calories in, more calories out. It's pretty simple. The idea of lying to your doctor is so fascinating to me because your life literally is on the line when you're talking to your doctor, right?
Yes, exactly.
And 20-year-old me would do that. Mm-hmm. 20-year-old me would hide things from my doctor and just not even bring them up. I'm literally paying this guy to help me with my problems, and I wouldn't tell them the truth about my problems.
That's the kicker, isn't it? An exorbitant amount of money and you're lying to them.
Right, exactly. And so now I'm probably too open with my doctor. Like I just actually saw my general practitioner 2 days ago, and we were talking about me potentially getting to the boxing ring, which I'm looking forward to doing. And I've been getting my exercise, my practice, and learning how to throw a punch and learning how to take one. And I'm trying to get there, man. I'm excited about it. It's actually in exercise I'm enjoying that's not swimming. So it's actually a lot of fun. I love building that power in my upper body and stuff. But I told him, I'm like, I think I'm going to fight this guy. He's like, really? I just like started laughing.
Yeah.
I'm just so grateful to have such a good doctor. And I think same with therapists. You got to find the right doctor. You got to find the right therapist. That support structure is so important. And I'm so glad that you've got that support structure as well. So, man, I don't want to borrow any more of your time. I've had you for an hour, Dave. This has been incredible. Anything else you want people to know about you? Obviously, you've got a YouTube channel. Where can they find you online? That's for sure. And any closing remarks you got for these guys?
I'm Davey Danna on pretty much everything: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. I'm the one who's verified. I'm the one posting all the gym selfies. But Davey Danna on everything. And again, I think I just would reiterate, if I could take a moment, and just that people want you to take this journey more than you probably realize. And yeah, it's embarrassing to come out and be like, hey, I got up to like 400 plus pounds. I can't wear a seatbelt, but they want to see you taking those first steps, and those first steps are the hardest ones. So I would just encourage you, whatever those demons are that you're fighting, whatever struggles you're going through every day, we're all going through our own, take those first few steps. And to me, doing it publicly was incredibly empowering, incredibly motivating. And I've never been down 86 pounds before on a diet. I've tried, endless cardio and salads a million times, but posting it online and being vulnerable and being open and talking to my people, my support network in real life, just really reinforced to me how much they want me to take these steps and how much I have to take them by myself with their support. And then that snowballed into what we have going on now with this very positive community that's building itself really online. But I just would want to reinforce that we all want you to take those first steps, whether it's physical health, whether it's mental health, whether it's financial health, whether it's spiritual health. The first steps are the hardest, and we all want you to do it, and we're all going to support you doing it, and we all want to see you taking those first baby steps. And, like I say online all the time, like, you can do it, I can do it, we can do it. I really think just getting started starts that snowball, whatever it is, go for it.
Dude, that is incredible. I've already done all my workouts for the day. My arms are sore as hell. I'm going to get on and do 5 more minutes today just from that alone, man. And Dave, I appreciate you so much for spending your time with me today. But more importantly, I appreciate the person you are choosing to be. I think you're helping the world, brother. And I'm so glad you're using your social media influence to do that. And I want you to know it's helping me as well, brother.
Well, thank you very much. It's wonderful to hear that. It's my pleasure to be here. I've been following you back from the Draw My Life days and the Francis days. So honestly, I try not to fanboy too much, but it is an honor. You've been one of the OGs of Twitter. I followed from a long time ago.
Well, thank you, my friend. All right, man. Well, I'll speak with you again soon.
Absolutely.